Now, in other news, the appeal trial has opened today in Paris for two men who were given 18-year prison sentences in the first Nice attack terrorism trial in 2022. The attacker, who killed 86 people while driving a lorry down the city's beachfront promenade nearly 8 years ago, was killed by police at the scene. Two friends of his who were convicted of having links to a terrorist group in the initial trial are appealing. 9 children who were on the promenade that night and who were very young at the time will be speaking during the proceedings for the first time. France 24's Claire Paccalin is here to tell us more. Claire, why are children taking part this time around?
So these 9 children have actually asked to take part. They've not been summoned by the court. They've not been called to the courtroom. They really have asked because they want to talk about how the attack affected their lives, how it's had an impact on their lives today. These children are what's called civil parties, so legally speaking, they're victims. And in French terrorism trials like this one, the civil case is actually pinned to the criminal case, which is why they're very much involved in these proceedings. Now, they've asked to take part with the support of their families because they want to talk openly about what they went through. 15 children were killed during the Nice attack. There were 3,000 children on the promenade that night. The attacker chose France's national holiday, July 14th, to carry out the attack. The promenade was full of people watching the fireworks, families eating ice cream together. The attacker drove his lorry down that promenade, trying his best to drive on the pavement in order to create as many victims as he possibly could. So you can just imagine the scenes that these children saw. Now, an association was created after the attack, Une Voix des Enfants, so a way for children to help these very young victims. And we know that over 700 children have received psychological care. But today, some are still struggling. Some are having a hard time at school. Some still have flashbacks today. And these 9 children who've asked to take part as civil parties in this trial say that they feel speaking about what they went through and what they're continuing to go through is going to help them and sort of liberate some of their emotions.
Like a sort of therapeutic in a way.
Right.
But Claire, why are they speaking at this trial and why didn't they speak at the initial one?
So the initial trial, that ended 18 months ago. They were younger, but it was a bit of an unknown quantity. The families of these children, their psychologists as well, their lawyers, didn't necessarily know what to expect. But there's been some time now since that initial trial ended in 2022 for the families to take stock. They know now how the trial will work. Over 200 other civil parties, so people who were older than the children, they spoke in that first trial about the impact the attack had had on their lives, people who've lost loved ones, people who are living with life-changing injuries. And now these children are saying that they want to share their story.
And how can they be protected during these proceedings?
So the trial is expected to last 2 months, but the children they won't be in court every day. They'll be at school. On the day that their speaking is scheduled, they will actually speak remotely from the courthouse in Nice because the trial is happening here in Paris. And they've already been given a chance to visit that courthouse. They've even been inside the special room, which is dedicated to where they will be speaking and their words will be broadcast in the courtroom in Paris. And it's important to note these children are very much being looked after. They'll have their families with them. They have professional psychological support. They have their lawyers. And because they won't actually be in the courtroom in Paris, they won't come face to face with the 2 men who are on trial.
And talk us through what the verdict was in the initial trial and who is appealing.
So 8 people were convicted in that first trial, but only 2 of them were given the long sentence of 18 years each. And those 2 were convicted of the most serious crime of having links to a terrorist group. Chokri Chefrou and Mohamed Graib, both friends of the attacker. They had been in contact with him not long before the attack. And when the judge read out those sentences back in 2022, there was actually some applause from the civil parties. There was this feeling among the civil parties that justice had been served. However, the lawyers for those 2 defendants felt that judgment had been a mistake. They said that there was clearly a very strong desire for revenge, given the horror of the attack. 86 people were killed, 15 of them children. More than 450 people were injured in the Nice attack, some of them with life-changing injuries. So the lawyers for the defendants who were convicted of having links to a terrorist group and given these 18-year sentences, their lawyers said that their clients had been on the receiving end of that desire for revenge, and they decided to appeal. Now, this is the issue we so often see in these terrorism trials. We've had several in the last few years in Paris. The man who carried out the attack was killed by police at the scene. So the question now is, who knew that he was radicalized? Who knew that he might be planning something? What did they know? Did they try to help him? And to what extent can they bear responsibility for what he did?